Before we get started, make sure you have the following handy: a bucket of water with dishwashing liquid, a cloth or a sponge for rubbing, and a paper towel for drying. For starts, clean both left and right crank arms on all sides using the sponge and plenty of dishwashing liquid to make sure all of the dirt and oil residue is removed. Then dry the cranks with a paper towel. You will need the following items from your POWERBEAT kit: 2 gluing devices with the sensors inside, these rubber bands, glue, stick for wiping the glue, alcohol pads, a marking ruler for each crank, rubber gloves, pencil, sandpaper, and sanding margin stickers. In addition, you should have protective goggles, a bowl of hot water, X-Acto knife, paper towel, and a cup of hot water. We will start with the ruler, which is used for marking the exact spot where the sensor should be glued. Slit A is used to mark the actual spot where the sanding margin stickers will be placed. Slit B helps position the center of the sensor with B marked on the outside of the crank and lines A drawn on the top. The gluing device I am holding contains the actual sensor inside in a cradle, and the plug should always be in the direction of the hole of the pedal. The rubber bands will position into these sockets, which applies pressure for 24 hours while the glue is drying. For optimal results, the sensor must be affixed to the crank as so. The paint layer of the crank must be removed, and the crank gluing surface needs to look like this. To keep the sanding area neat, you will use the sanding margin stickers. The sticker should be applied parallel to the crank arm with the center of the sticker aligned with line B. As always, we will start with the left crank. Pick up the ruler marked L. Turn the left crank so it faces the rear wheel, and then place the ruler marked L facing outward like this. Screw the pedal almost to the end to hold the ruler in position. Now, mark the A slip on the top of the crank where the sensor will actually be glued. Release the pedal just a bit and let it drop. Apply the sticker parallel to the crank arm between the A lines and center to the B line. Next, soak the sandpaper in water and sand thoroughly until you have removed the paint layer. Now, with the paper towel, wipe off any water and remove the sticker. One more swipe with the paper towel and an alcohol pad. Allow the crank arm to dry without blowing on it. Remove the pedal and the ruler. Next, carefully place the rubber bands over the crank arm. Try not to touch it so that everything stays nice and clean. Proceed to prepare the right crank. Place the right crank so it faces the back wheel. Place the ruler marked R and screw on the pedal to hold it. Make sure the letter R is facing you and mark the 2 A slits and B. Let the ruler drop. Apply the sticker parallel to the crank arm between the A lines and center to the B line. Soak the sandpaper in water and sand thoroughly until you have removed the paint layer. Now, with the paper towel, wipe off any water and remove the sticker. One more swipe with the paper towel and an alcohol pad. Allow the crank arm to dry without blowing on it. Remove the pedal and the ruler. Next, carefully place the rubber bands over the crank arm. Try not to touch it so that everything stays nice and clean. Let's now do a dry run of the gluing procedure without any glue. When it comes to situating the sensor in its position, it's crucial that you follow these 3 rules. Rule 1. The sensor should be glued on the topmost part of the crank arm when the crank is pointing towards the rear of the bike. Rule 2. When glued, the sensor should be aligned straight in the center, not to the left, right, or diagonally, but straight in the middle like this. Rule 3. When glued, the silver side of the sensor should have full contact with the crank arm surface. Now, remember that the plug is always facing the direction of the pedal hole when the crank is turned back. Go back to the left side. Place the device so the grooved line marking the center of the sensor is aligned with line B. Now, place the device in such a way that your left-hand thumb is holding it in the center. Hold the sensor with your right thumb by applying some pressure on the handle. Finally, with your free hand, bring the first rubber band into the socket next to your right thumb, and then the second rubber band goes into the second socket like this. Before releasing your thumb, make sure that the rubber bands are parallel and well aligned. Don't worry if you need to make small adjustments, just make sure the 3 rules mentioned earlier are applied. That the sensor is glued on top, aligned in the center with the silver side having full contact. Now, place the rubber bands back where they were with your thumb still on the handle and remove the gluing device. The gluing and curing of the glue must take place in a room temperature of 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. Great, we're now ready for the real deal with the glue, so let's put on our goggles and gloves. Take another alcohol pad, place it on a clean surface, and while holding the device on its handle, wipe the silver side across the pad 1 time. From the moment we open this packet of glue, we have 10 minutes to glue both right and left sensors. But before opening the glue, submerge it in a cup of hot water 30 to 60 seconds. Remove the glue from the water. Take it out of the plastic bag. Hold the packet in one hand and remove the handle with the other hand. Don't worry if it takes a little force. On your clean surface, slide the handle across from one side to the other while applying some pressure and dragging the glue side to side. Do this about 30 times until the glue is mixed. Move all the glue to one side and cut the pack in the middle. Then, extract a generous amount of glue onto the empty half of the pack. Next, hold the sensor handle and spread a very thin layer of glue across the silver side using the stick. Make sure the left crank is facing the rear of the bike and that the cable plug is also facing the rear. Place the gluing device in such a way that the B line is perfectly aligned with a narrow groove that marks the center of the sensor. Now make sure the 3 rules apply. Sensor on top aligned in the middle with full contact against the surface, just like this. It's okay to move it a bit for adjustments. When you're finished adjusting the position, apply pressure right at the center for 10 seconds and then release your finger. Now we're ready to proceed with gluing the right sensor. I'll run through it quickly, though it's basically the same procedure. First, we turn the crank back. The crank should already be clean from before, with the 2 bands around it at the end. Take a new alcohol pad and wipe it once across the gluing area. And with another alcohol pad, clean the right sensor by sliding it once over the pad. Now we take the stick with the glue on it and spread a thin and consistent layer on the silver side of the sensor. Make sure the crank is facing back and place the device so that its center mark is aligned with line B. Place your right thumb on the center of the device, and then the left thumb holds it on its handle while the right hand places the rubber bands in their appropriate sockets. You can move it around a bit for the perfect fit with line B aligned with the center groove. If you need to make any adjustments after the rubber bands are in place, hold the device on its handle and move it a bit with the other hand. When you're done, press in the middle for 10 seconds and let go. That's it. You're done gluing the sensors. Now just leave it untouched to dry for 24 hours, or even longer, in room temperature of 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. You can get more details in the user manual. Now it's time to charge your comp units and relax. The POWERBEAT app will let you know when it's ready.